DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. It's one of the most famous molecules in the world. Why? Because it holds the genetic information that codes for the physical makeup of all living organisms. Every plant and every animal has DNA in the nucleus of its cells. But one of the coolest things about this molecule is its shape. I'm positive you've seen it before. It's the double helix. A double helix can best be described as a ladder that's been repeatedly twisted along its length. But there's another angle scientists love to have of an elongated molecule to fully understand its shape, and that's its cross-sectional view. And it's here that we find something amazing inside the DNA molecule. For a cross-sectional view, what you do is you cut across the molecule and then you look straight down its imaginary axis. And do you know what you find when you do this to the DNA molecule? The molecule has the shape of a regular decagon. That means it has 10 equal sides, or 10 points. But to be even more specific, the decagon is actually made up of 2 regular pentagons, or 5 pointed polygons, which are rotated 36 degrees from one another. This makes every other point on the decagon from the opposite pentagon. Now listen, I'm not going to bore you with the details of exactly how this happens, but it has to do with there being precisely 10 base pairs or 10 rungs to the imaginary ladder for every full 360-degree twist of the DNA molecule. This allows for the 2 long strands of DNA making up the double helix, or the 2 long sides of the imaginary ladder, to each supply 5 points to the decagon. Now honestly, what does this remind you of? In the Bible, we have a story of God writing His 10 commandments on 2 pieces of stone. They are known affectionately as the Decalogue, or the 10 laws, just like DNA's decagon, or 10 points. The Bible even mentions 2 great laws that equal the 10. One is to love God with all of your heart, and 2 is to love your neighbor as yourself. And the Bible confirms the second law is like the first. In other words, they are interchangeable. Loving God is like loving your neighbor, or loving your neighbor is like loving God. And this truth is demonstrated in the DNA molecule by the 2 pentagons being intertwined with each other. Friend, it is obvious God has purposely designed the DNA molecule to contain a snapshot of His 10 love commandments law anywhere and everywhere along its length. But why would He do this? It's simple. So mankind would marvel about it after discovering it. It literally becomes further evidence of His existence. In fact, 3,000 years ago, the psalmist wrote, "I praise ye, Lord, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works." And it's true, you are, even right down to the molecular level. Listen, God invented the DNA molecule as the instruction book for producing all physical life we see and know on planet Earth. Scientists literally call it the molecule of life. Therefore, isn't it clever that God has embedded it with a picture of his 10 love commandments, because he knows they are the instruction book for producing all spiritual life. So just like DNA is the molecule of life, the 10 love commandments are the law of life. Let me say it another way. DNA contains the directions for creating physical life on earth, but God's 10 love commandments contain the directions for creating spiritual life in heaven. Amazing, isn't it? Also, think about this. Isn't it ironic that DNA is now the main evidence used to convict or exonerate someone? In other words, the molecule that God infused with an image of his 10 love commandments is now very often the molecule or physical evidence that determines whether a person has kept them or not. Do you see the irony in that? Picture a forensic scientist sitting there analyzing the DNA evidence of a rape case or a murder case. The very molecule they are testing contains an image of the 2 stone tables God inscribed with the 10 love commandments, which say, do not commit sexual immorality, do not murder. And in the end, that molecule winds up determining whether they did or they didn't. Oh, the wonderful irony. Now here's something for you atheists to think about. Do you know when the DNA molecule was first discovered? It was 1869. Before that, mankind had no knowledge of its existence. But realize they knew nothing about the molecule in 1869. They had no clue it was the molecule that carried the hereditary information for all of life. It wouldn't be until the 1920s, when they ran a test on bacterial DNA, that they got their first hint that this molecule might be the genetic carrier. And then it was 1944 when they got definitive proof that DNA really was the genetic molecule. After this, the search was on for what did the molecule look like. What kind of shape did it have to allow it to be able to transfer genetic information to the next generation? It must be amazing. Its shape would be of paramount importance. Well, again, I'll spare you the details, but suffice it to say, it was 1953 when 2 Cambridge University scientists, Watson and Crick, got it right. The DNA molecule was in the shape of a double helix. 2 strands of DNA twisted like a ladder. "We've found the secret of life," they shouted in a local pub. And now today, you know the rest of the story. The cross-sectional view of DNA reveals a 10-pointed decagon, the 2 DNA strands each donating 5 points, just like God's 2 tables of stone containing the 10 commandments. So think about this, atheists. We have proof the Bible was written thousands of years ago. In fact, the story of Moses in it receiving the 10 commandments on 2 stone tables was written well over 2,500 years ago. So how can this be? How can the DNA molecule's cross-sectional view mirror God's 10 love commandments given in that story so perfectly? Especially when considering the significance of each, as I've just explained. The molecule of life is stamped with God's laws of life. Trust me, Moses had no clue about the DNA molecule or what it looked like when he was living out that story. So as you lay down in your bed tonight, I want you to concentrate on the DNA swimming in every cell of your body. The DNA that's coded for who you are. Friend, it's crying out to you. It's all about love. Life is about love. The Creator God is love. And He's branded all of creation with His signature. The 10 love commandments are the highest knowledge in life. They explain everything about love. They are the directions for what you must do in order to obtain eternal life. So don't be fooled by preachers who try to trivialize or minimize their worth, for they are everything. They are your entire duty on this earth. Fail to live by them, and you will perish for all eternity. Keep them, and you will live. Everything Jesus taught, every story, every parable, and every direct teaching, when He was instructing us on how to live to obtain eternal life, was based on keeping the 10 love commandments. If you don't understand these things, please do yourself a huge favor and watch our seminar about them here on YouTube, entitled The Complete 10 Love Commandments Seminar by Gabriel Ansley Erb. Download it and burn it to a CD. Listen to it in your car. It's free to everyone. Jesus said, if you want to obtain eternal life, keep my commandments. Do this, and you will receive Christ's forgiveness for sins He made available by dying on the cross. It's your life, folks. This is the only chance you get. Living by God's 10 love commandments is the most important thing you will ever do on this earth. May God bless you with a desire to do just that.
Visit 10lovecommandments.com to get your copy of the beautiful 10 Love Commandments poster. This poster is a biblical masterpiece and a must-have for every household and church. Learn how the 2 great commandments, to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself, are a summary of the 10 Love Commandments. Learn how all sin is based on disobedience to the 10 Love Commandments and all love is based on obedience to them. For example, learn where hatred and forgiveness fit into the 10 Love Commandments. Learn the powerful salvation equation, which clearly explains God's duty and your duty in obtaining eternal life for your soul. Learn how all of Jesus' teachings, when instructing us on how to live to obtain eternal life, every parable, story, and direct teaching are based on the 10 Love Commandments. Learn dozens of biblical phrases that mean to keep the 10 Love Commandments, like be sober and vigilant, the patience of the saints, and to know God. Learn how your 2 hands containing 10 fingers and your 2 feet containing 10 toes are your own personal copies of the 2 stone tables God inscribed with the 10 Love Commandments. Get your poster today, hang it on your wall, and let it encourage you daily to always do those things that are pleasing in God's sight. The works of love.